The night my sister launched her new brand, my parents locked me inside a storage room behind the main event hall in the arts district. My mother said the lights were too harsh for me. My father said the music would make me act strange. My sister set her laptop on a box of folded linens and told me to fix one last render before the investors arrived. Then she left and locked the door from the outside. Through the narrow gap beside the frame, I could see the giant LED wall glowing across the ballroom. Champagne glasses flashed. Cameras turned. My sister smiled like the whole city belonged to her. And behind her, filling every inch of that screen, was my work. Not inspired by me. Not based on my style. Mine. The color system was mine. The motion rhythm was mine. The layered glass effect was mine. Even the hidden marker was still there. Layer 9. That was the moment I stopped feeling trapped. Because my family thought they had hidden the embarrassing daughter in the back room. They had actually locked the real owner of everything they were celebrating behind a door. And they still had no idea. I knew that name because I had built it for one reason only. Layer 9 was never supposed to leave my private source files. It was not part of any client package. Not part of any export. Not part of any public preview. It was a buried marker inside the animation stack. A quiet fingerprint. My fingerprint. If Layer 9 was glowing on that ballroom wall, my sister had not hired a smart team. She had stolen from the only place that could expose her. I sat on an unopened crate and pressed my palms against my knees until the shaking stopped. Outside, I could hear applause. Glass. Laughter. Her voice. Smooth. Polished. Practiced. The same voice she used every time my parents introduced her as their success story and me as the daughter who preferred staying in the background. They always said I was more comfortable hidden away. They were wrong. I was only quiet around people who confused erasure with love. Silence was never the same as surrender. Before I tell you how my family locked me in that room, tell me where you are watching from. I was 29, standing a few feet from my own stolen work, listening to strangers cheer for my sister and realizing the night had already started turning against all them. My name is Nora Vale. I am 29 years old. I live in South Pasadena, just outside Los Angeles. I work as a 3D motion designer and licensing artist. And I am telling you this because my family thought hiding me meant they could own my work too. My sister, Sloane, was the face people remembered. She knew where to stand. She knew when to smile. She knew how to turn every room into a mirror that gave her back exactly what she wanted. My mother loved that about her. My father invested in it. Together, they built a whole family language around her brightness and my silence. They called her polished. They called me difficult. The truth was less flattering. I was the one who noticed what other people missed. I could hold shapes in my head for hours. I could track layers, timing, light behavior, motion curves, and material depth without losing the thread. But I was never good at surviving rooms full of perfume, glass, overlapping voices, and fake laughter. My family learned that early. They did not protect me from it. They used it. At parties, Sloane greeted the guests. I filled the gaps. I fixed slides in kitchens. I adjusted lighting decks in hallways. I rebuilt logos in parked cars. I rendered product loops at dining room tables while hearing my mother tell people I was more comfortable helping behind the scenes. That was her favorite phrase. Behind the scenes. It sounded kind. It was not. Behind the scenes meant unseen. Unpaid. Uncredited. By the time Sloane announced her luxury lifestyle brand, everyone around her believed she had built it from taste, charm, and vision. They never asked who designed the motion language. Who shaped the campaign identity? Who made the brand look expensive before it ever earned $1? They just looked at the sister holding the microphone. They never looked at the one holding the structure. That night, while applause rolled through the ballroom wall, I understood something simple. They had spent years teaching me to disappear. They had never imagined disappearance could leave a paper trail. A few minutes later, the ballroom doors opened again, and I could see more of the room through the narrow strip beside the frame. White light spilled across concrete. The launch space looked expensive in the way Los Angeles people liked most. Cold. Minimal. Photographed well. There were white orchids on the bar. Frosted glass towers under spotlights. A wall of cream draping behind the stage. Every table held the new logo in brushed gold, as if the brand had already been alive for years instead of a few unstable months. Near the center of the room stood a tall cocktail table with a cream folder laid perfectly flat on top. Beside it sat a gold pen. Not a hotel pen. Not a borrowed one. A ceremonial pen. A sign that something official was meant to happen before the night ended. Even from the storage room, I could read the pattern. A public launch in front of investors. A private document waiting off to the side. A sister smiling under borrowed light. Parents moving through the crowd like hosts at a wedding. Everything curated. Everything rehearsed. That was how my family always worked. They did not create chaos. They created positioning. They moved people into roles, then acted surprised when no one stepped out of line. My mother handled tone. My father handled pressure. Sloan handled image. And I handled whatever they needed fixed before anyone important noticed a flaw. I knew the rhythm because I had lived inside it for years. When I was 17, my mother made me redesign a fundraiser deck in the coat room while Sloan accepted compliments for a concept she had not touched. When I was 21, my father called me from a parking garage and asked me to rebuild an investor presentation because Sloan had promised results she could not produce. When I was 26, I spent Thanksgiving in the upstairs office rendering holiday campaign loops, while my relatives toasted my sister for being the creative one. They never hit me. They never screamed. They did something cleaner. They made me useful, then called that love. That was why the room mattered. Not because it was glamorous. Because every object inside it had a job. The orchids said luxury. The draping said legitimacy. The LED wall said success. The folder said control. And the locked storage room said the rest. Out there, Sloan was introducing her brand as a story about feminine vision, modern elegance, and originality. Inside that room, people nodded and lifted their glasses. Inside this one, I sat beside folding chairs, extra linens, and a rolling rack of stems. Same building. Same family. Two versions of the truth. Then Sloan stepped onto the stage and took the room back. She wore cream silk and a smile I had seen 1,000 times before. It was the smile she used when she wanted people to believe confidence and ownership were the same thing. The screen behind her pulsed with my motion system. Light moved across brushed gold surfaces. Frosted glass folded open in slow precision. Every transition hit exactly on the beat I had built into the render map 3 months earlier. The crowd leaned in. Sloan lifted her glass and thanked her investors, her collaborators, and our parents for believing in her vision. Then she said the sentence that made me sit up straighter on the crate. We built every source asset in-house. Not commissioned. Not acquired. Not adapted. Built. That one word told me she was no longer bluffing around people who did not know better. She was lying in front of people who did. I moved closer to the gap beside the door and watched the next sequence roll across the LED wall. Layered reflections. Slow material bloom. A controlled split in the glass field. Then I saw it again. Layer 9. Small. Buried. Still there. My pulse slowed instead of rising. That was the strange thing about me. The more obvious the lie became, the calmer I got. Layer 9 was never included in exported client packages. It lived too deep in the stack. Anyone showing it publicly had touched the real source tree or something pulled directly from it. That narrowed the circle. Sloan kept speaking. She called the brand original. She called it fully developed by her internal creative team. She thanked a production partner in Santa Monica for helping scale execution, which meant she was already spreading the risk outward. Even trapped in a storage room, I could hear the structure of the life forming in real time. Claim authorship. Create witnesses. Repeat it with confidence. Make it sound expensive enough to survive questions. Around the room, people nodded. A few raised phones. Someone near the bar said this was the cleanest luxury launch they had seen all quarter. I pressed my fingertips against the door frame and looked at the screen one more time. Sloan thought that wall was proof she had made herself untouchable. She did not understand it was already evidence. And for the first time that night, I stopped wondering how they planned to use me next. That question mattered more than the locked door. I started wondering how much they had already put under my name. A few minutes after Sloane finished speaking, the storage room door opened. My mother stood there first, already smiling as if she were doing me a favor. My father stayed behind her with one hand in his pocket. Sloane appeared last, still glowing from applause. My mother lowered her voice. Come on. Do not make this harder than it needs to be. She led me to the cocktail table I had noticed from inside the room. Up close, the cream folder looked heavier than I expected. Thick paper. Tab sections. The gold pen sat perfectly centered above it, waiting for a clean ending. Sloane touched the folder with 2 fingers and gave me a patient smile. This is just a continuity agreement. It keeps everything organized as the brand grows. I did not reach for it. My father stepped in. You have been helping for years. This formalizes it. That is all. It was never all. I opened the folder and scanned the first page. The title was polished enough to calm strangers. Creative Continuity and Personal Support Agreement. The language underneath was cleaner than the truth. Assignment of all derivative works. Permanent internal support obligations. Confidentiality restrictions. Capacity language wrapped in soft legal phrasing. Not support. Ownership. Not family. Control. Sloane watched my face. It is simple, Nora. I looked up at her. If it is simple, read it. For a second, nobody moved. Then Sloane laughed lightly and glanced at the attorney standing a few feet away near the bar. I had not noticed him before. Dark suit. Silver tie. Relaxed posture. He stepped closer, took the folder from my hands, and flipped to the signature page like the rest of it did not matter. He gave the kind of smile men use when they expect compliance dressed as gratitude. This confirms that all relevant design work created in connection with the company remains with the company. It also sets expectations for ongoing assistance. I held his gaze. Read the assignment clause. He paused. Then he skipped ahead again. My mother exhaled sharply. Nora, this is exactly why we try to handle things privately. I turned one page myself and tapped the paragraph they wanted buried. Read that one. The attorney did not take the paper back this time. My father reached for the folder instead, but I pulled it closer to me. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just enough. Sloane's smile tightened. You are making this ugly. No, I said. I am making you say it out loud. Because once it was spoken plainly, the room changed. This was not a thank you. Not a promotion. Not even a contract between adults acting in good faith. It was a leash written in polished language, waiting for me to slip my name into it. For a breath, nobody around that table spoke. The attorney looked at Sloane. Sloane looked at my father. My mother recovered first. She always did. She put one hand over the open folder and smiled toward a couple drifting past us. Family paperwork, she said. Nothing dramatic. The woman in the silver dress gave a polite nod and moved on. But she looked back once. My mother leaned closer. This is exactly why we did not want you out there tonight. I held her eyes. Did not blink. Did not answer. She hated that. Silence worked for her only when it belonged to me in the shape she wanted. Quiet daughter. Helpful daughter. Not this version. Sloane stepped in before the pause grew teeth. Nora, nobody is taking anything from you. We are trying to protect the company. There are investors here. Retail buyers. Brand partners. We cannot have confusion over who did what on a launch night. Who did what? That was how she framed theft. As confusion. I looked at the folder again. Then at the LED wall still glowing across the room. My work. Her face. My system. Her story. You mean confusion over who made this possible, I said. My father gave a low warning. Keep your voice down. I did not raise it. I did not need to. The danger in that moment was not volume. It was precision. The attorney tried again. Ms. Vale, these provisions are standard in founder-led companies where family members contribute informally. The agreement simply clarifies ownership and future expectations. Read the capacity section, I said. His jaw tightened. Sloane folded her arms. You are doing that thing again. What thing? taking one sentence and making it into a crisis because you do not understand how real businesses work. I understand enough to know you do not want it read out loud. Around us, the launch kept breathing. Servers crossed the concrete floor with plated desserts. Someone laughed too loudly at the bar. But the current had shifted. I could feel eyes grazing past us. My mother lowered her voice. Do not do this here. You know crowds make things harder for you. That was her second trick. When control slipped, she translated my resistance into fragility. If I left a dinner because the sound felt like needles, she told people I had become overwhelmed. If I corrected a lie with too much detail, she told people I fixated. I knew what she was doing now. She wanted witnesses to hear a familiar version before they heard the truth. Not coercive contract. Protective arrangement. Not theft. Miscommunication. Social control first. Facts later. I set the folder flat on the table. Then let him read it, I said. The attorney did not move. My father did. He placed 2 fingers on the top page as though he could gently guide the paper shut, and with it the entire problem. Nora, enough. You have always had a hard time with tone. This is business. Not one of your private files. I looked at his hand on the folder. Then at him. Exactly, I said. Business. So use business language. His fingers curled and left the page. Sloane gave a short laugh for the benefit of anyone close enough to hear. You are not an officer, she said. You are not on any public materials. You are not even client-facing. Nobody is trying to erase you. We are trying to keep roles clean. Not on public materials. That part was true. My family never gave me visible titles. Visibility creates records. Records create claims. Records create leverage. But my father had already said too much. Your name is already tied to half the company paperwork anyway. I looked at him again. What paperwork? His face changed. Not much. Enough. Sloane answered too fast. Vendor forms. Internal drafts. Administrative placeholders. Dad is tired. Do not do this thing where you turn fragments into accusations. I kept looking at him. What paperwork, Dad? He straightened. We have had to move quickly. That is what growth requires. Sometimes there are interim documents before final structure. That was not an answer. What interim documents? My mother stepped between us by half an inch. Nora, stop. You are getting rigid. A man from one of the retail groups drifted near enough to pretend he was studying the product tower beside us. 2 younger women with press badges slowed near the bar. The attorney cleared his throat. Perhaps this would be better handled next week in my office. No, I said. Read the paragraph now. He looked at the page and chose not to. Procedural control. That was the second layer. They could not win by emotion anymore, so they shifted to process. Delay. Summarize. Relocate. Rename. Anything except read the exact words in the exact place where the power balance was changing. I put one finger on the clause they wanted hidden. Read this sentence. The attorney inhaled. Ms. Vale, the agreement includes language acknowledging that due to certain personal limitations, family supervision and decision support have historically been provided in connection with your work. This is meant to protect all parties. My mother winced. Not because it was cruel, because it had been heard. Protect all parties. I nodded once. Read the next sentence. He hesitated again, then gave in. Any intellectual property, derivative materials, supporting assets, drafts, or conceptual development created by Ms. Nora Vale in connection with the company, directly or indirectly, shall be deemed works made for hire or otherwise irrevocably assigned. The silence after that line felt different. He had read it. The room could not unhear it. The man near the product tower stopped pretending to study the display. One of the press girls glanced at Sloane, then at me. Sloane leaned in fast. This is why private support documents are private. You hear legal wording and twist it into abuse. I said nothing. My mother took over again. Nora has always needed help with complex environments. That does not make her less gifted. It just means we have had to create structure around her. We have sacrificed a great deal to keep her safe. Safe. In a locked storage room. Then why was I locked in the back, I asked, while she launched my work out front. My mother flushed. We asked you to stay somewhere quiet for your own comfort. I looked at Sloane. Did I ask for that? Sloane did not answer. I shifted my eyes back to my father. What paperwork is my name on? He exhaled once. Hard. Then the answer came out in pieces because anger makes careful men stupid. You were already attached to the formation documents in the beginning, all right. We needed a clean name on some of the early filings. It was temporary. Nobody around us moved. Formation documents. Adult with clean history. Early structuring. Not a misunderstanding. Company formation. My name. My risk. Sloane turned on him at once. Dad. Too late. They had not only built a brand on my labor. They had built legal distance with my identity. My mother grabbed the edge of the folder. Lower your voice, Nora. I looked at her hand. Then at her. I am not the one who just admitted it. The room finally tilted. The man by the display stepped away and pulled out his phone. One of the press girls whispered something to the other. Sloane tried one last reset. You do not understand the pressure we are under, she said. We carried you for years. We gave you a place in this company when no one else would know what to do with you. We made sure you were protected. And this is what you choose to do on our biggest night. No. That was the old frame. Gratitude. Dependency. Family rescue. I reached into my bag, unlocked my phone, and typed 2 words. Come in. The door behind me opened before anyone at the table understood what I had done. A woman in a charcoal suit stepped into the light with a process server beside her. She did not hurry. She did not scan the room. She walked straight toward the cream folder, the gold pen, and my sister's face. That was Evelyn Cross. She was my attorney. The process server held a flat envelope in one hand. Evelyn carried a hard case and a slim laptop. Clean lines. No wasted motion. She looked like someone who had already decided where this night ended. My mother's mouth parted first. Sloane recovered faster. Who invited her? I answered without looking away from Evelyn. I did. Evelyn reached the table and set the hard case down beside the folder they had wanted me to sign. Then she looked at Sloane. Ms. Vale, you have been served. The process server extended the envelope. Sloane did not take it. My father did, as if touching the paper first might reduce what it was. It did not. Around us, conversation in the room thinned by inches. The attorney my family had brought stepped forward. I am counsel for the company. You cannot interrupt a private business discussion with theater. Evelyn turned to him once. Calm. Flat. This is not theater. This is service of process, notice of preservation obligations, and demand for immediate retention of all source files, exports, emails, cloud records, internal messages, and company formation materials connected to the assets displayed tonight. Nobody spoke. Then she opened her case and placed 3 documents on the table in a clean row. Federal copyright complaint. Registration certificates. Formation records. Sloane gave a short laugh that sounded too bright. This is insane. Evelyn opened the laptop. No, she said. What is insane is launching stolen work on a wall this large and leaving the internal marker visible. Sloane lifted her chin and tried to pull the room back. Read it, then. Let them hear how ridiculous this sounds. That was the mistake. Evelyn did exactly that. She read the registration numbers. She read filing dates. She read the authorship declarations. She read the notice demanding preservation of every machine that had touched the launch materials. Then she read the complaint, naming willful infringement and unauthorized use of registered visual assets. Each sentence stripped away another layer of Sloane's performance. No one was looking at her dress anymore. No one was admiring the orchids or draping or the logo. They were looking at the wall, the laptop, the papers, the chain. The room had stopped listening to family language. It was listening to records now. She turned the screen toward the nearest cluster of guests. There it was. My animation stack. My source structure. My naming system. And inside it, buried where only the creator would know to look, Layer 9. One of the retail buyers leaned in. The press girls moved closer. Even my father's attorney stopped pretending this was manageable. Sloane crossed her arms. A marker proves nothing. Evelyn clicked once. Version history filled the screen. Draft dates. revision paths, render notes, source logs, licensing inquiries tied to my alias account, file hashes matching the launch assets running on the ballroom wall behind Sloane's head. Then Evelyn spoke the sentence my family had spent years making impossible. The anonymous artist behind the registered work you launched tonight is Nora Vale. That did it. Not because I raised my voice. Not because I finally begged to be seen. Because the structure said it for me. The room looked at me differently then. Not with pity. Not with family politeness. With recognition. My mother tried anyway. Nora is confused. She has always had difficulty with overstimulation and social interpretation. Evelyn slid the third stack forward. Then let us move to the identity issue. She opened the formation records. California LLC filings. Early operating documents. Tax registration support papers. My name. My information. Electronic signatures that were not mine. My father went still. Sloane did not. Those were placeholders, she said. Temporary. Everybody does that during early growth. Evelyn looked at her the way a surgeon looks at a cracked instrument. No, not everybody does that. And not under another person's identity while assigning exposure away from the visible founder. The silence that followed felt earned. I looked at Sloane. That is not your brand story, I said. That is your infringement record. Then I turned to my parents. And that is not protection. That is what you filed under my name. Nobody at that table had an answer left. They had used my quiet like blank paper. Now every page in front of them was talking. No one tried to stop me when I stepped away from that table. That was the first real change. For years, my family had always filled the space around me with instructions. Sit here. Fix this. Do not say that. Leave early. Stay in the back. Let Sloane handle it. That night, after the papers were read and the wall behind us kept glowing with stolen work, there was finally a pocket of silence that belonged to me. The launch did not end all at once. It came apart in pieces. One investor left before dessert was served. A retail buyer asked for a card from Evelyn instead of Sloane. The two women with press badges stopped taking pictures of the product wall and started writing names. Near the bar, the production partner from Santa Monica pulled out his phone and walked toward the exit with the look of a man already calling his own lawyer. Nobody raised a voice. They did not have to. Rooms like that do not explode. They cool down. Money gets quiet first. Then loyalty follows it out. By the next morning, Sloane's launch clips were being reposted for the wrong reason. Not because people loved the brand. Because someone had captured the moment service papers hit the table. By noon, a trade blog had a short item up about a copyright complaint connected to a luxury founder in Los Angeles. By Monday, one retail meeting was postponed, then another. A freelance creative director posted that authorship matters. An agency quietly removed the campaign from its portfolio page. The brand did not start collapsing from embarrassment. It started collapsing when purchase orders paused and counsel got involved. It started dying from review. Every partner wanted to know the same thing. Who owned the work? Who touched the files? Who signed the early documents? Who knew my name had been used? Once those questions started, the beautiful launch room from that night became what it really was. A very expensive exhibit. State. Investigators requested records. The hosting venue preserved security footage. The accountant who had helped with the early filings suddenly remembered every date. Once structure replaced family language, nobody wanted to be the last person still defending a lie that had already been documented. My parents stopped calling me directly after Evelyn sent notice through counsel. Their lawyer requested time. Requested context. Requested patience. Those were new words from people who had spent years giving none. Sloane posted one apology. It was clean. Strategic. Bloodless. She called the situation a misunderstanding about early creative contributions and administrative filings during a period of rapid growth. That post lasted 6 hours before even her supporters turned on the wording. Misunderstanding was not strong enough. Neither was contributions. People know theft when it has a paper trail. 3 months later, I stood in a small gallery in Culver City under my real name for the first time. No alias. No locked door. No family representative speaking for me before I opened my mouth. The room was brighter than I usually liked, and the opening crowd was larger than I would have chosen, but this time the discomfort belonged to my work, not to my erasure. People were there because they had followed the case, then found the art. They asked careful questions. They looked at the layers. They listened when I answered. No one called me difficult for needing a minute between conversations. That was what freedom felt like to me. Not revenge. Accuracy. My family taught me that love could sound like management. That protection could look like control. That silence was the price of staying inside the circle. They were wrong. Real love does not lock you away and wear your work in public. Real family does not file risk under your name and call it help. And the quiet one in the room is not empty. Sometimes she is the only one who kept the original files.